this is before with just the init lead. And then after some sound design and some processing and all that good stuff, here's the result. What's up guys, Amel here back in the studio, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make the Brooks lead. Before I get into this video, I just want to quickly say that my latest track, my latest single with my good friend Priyansh is out. It's sort of like an old school NCS type style. It's a house track. I think it's super dope. So I'm going to leave a link down in the description if you want to go check it out, stream it, and let me know what you think. Otherwise, let's jump right into the video. So in this video, I'm going to be basically remaking the lead of Boomerang. Now, I know Brooks has a ton of tracks, so there's not just one Brooks lead, but I think I would call this like his sort of signature lead sound. You can hear this lead in tracks like Boomerang, in his remix of Scared to Be Lonely, and also in one of my personal favorites, his VIP edit of Bite. Now the way I'm going to be doing this is I'm going to kind of break it up into two sections. The first section is that there's a couple key elements that really makes the Brooks lead sound like the Brooks lead. So I'm going to talk about those couple things, and then once we're done with that, then we're actually going to jump into the second part, which is going to be how to do the sound design to get this lead, and layering, all that sort of stuff, processing, and all that extra stuff to get the Brooks lead. So without further ado, let's jump right into the tutorial and see how to do this. All right, first things first, you can see I have a blank pattern here. I've also set up 3 leads. These are all Silent 1. I know Brooks uses Spire mostly. I don't have Spire, but Silent 1 is, I would say, just as good. I use it all the time. That's sort of my go-to synthesizer. You can see I have 3 instances here, all init leads. They just sound like that, and I have those routed to 3 different channels here, 1, 2, 3. All those channels go to a lead bus, which I called it the Brooks lead bus, and that's just so later on, once we've done the sound design and whatnot, we can sort of process those leads all together. All right, now the first step is going to be creating the melody, of course. So I'm going to work on getting the MIDI down, and then we'll get back and see what it sounds like. All right, so here's the MIDI I came up with. Now keep in mind, again, this is just the init lead. Just one saw synth, just one layer, and it sounds like this. So I know it sounds terrible, but we have the basis of the melody, and now let's jump into the couple things that is going to really transform this from just a super simple saw into the Brooks lead. All right, now the first thing you're going to notice is I have these 2 notes which lay on top of each other. They sound like this, right? Sounds super weird. Now the reason I have that is because what Brooks often does, well, he really uses a combination of these 2 things, but he likes to do a lot of pitch bending, and you can either do that with a pitch automation, or you can do it with the actual overlapping notes. In this case, we're actually going to use a combination of both. So first, we're going to open this up. Again, it's just init, just one saw. And down here in the right corner, we're going to turn on this option, which basically tells the synth when notes are overlapping that it's going to slide into each other. I'm going to keep it right at about, what is it, like 80 milliseconds or something like that. Let's see how that sounds. So already that turned the lead into something that's sounding a lot better. Now, thing number 2, which I just said, is pitch bending. I've already created these pitch bends from another project, so I'm just going to drag them over. The key thing here is we have to go here, Soul lead number 2 pitch bend. We go into the synthesizer. You can set this to whatever you like. I think Brooks usually uses a pitch range of 6. I always do 12. I do a full octave in case I want to bend an octave. So then I'm gonna hold on to this knob, go up here, right click on this thing, and this is basically a knob that grabs the last thing you used. So since we use this last, it's gonna be up here. We right click that and then say link to controller. Now once we go here, all we have to do is select the right automation clip, and it's connected. So if we play this back, you can see this is gonna start to wiggle around. Okay, so that's linked. That's how you link the automation clip, or if you don't already have an existing automation clip, the other way to do it would be create your bend range and then wiggle this and then go up here and say create automation clip. So those are the ways to do it. So now let's take a listen to it with the pitch bend. Especially right in here is, you can hear the biggest difference. Let's turn that off again. Right, sounds super static and boring without the pitch bend, and now with the pitch bend. And then the other part where you're going to really notice it, actually two parts. This is the first one. This thing right here. What I've done is I've created these 2 points here and here, and if you right click it, it's normally a single curve, and you can go down and select a wave, and that turns it into this, and it sort of puts a bit of vibrato on it. And then at the end here we have another one. We have this little fill, and if we put the pitch automation, it sounds like this. Right, so those are the things that really makes it sort of the Brooks lead. He uses a lot of pitch automation. So the combination of these sliding notes, and then also adding on top of that these little pitch automations. In this case, I think there's a pitch automation on close to every note. So the second thing is really makes the lead sound a whole lot better. And this is something that Brooks taught in his masterclass a couple years ago. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a reverb. So this is going to be the reverb. I'm just going to pretty much leave it stock. I don't think, I'm going to maybe turn the decay up a tiny bit, and we can open up a peak controller. Then what we're going to do is right click on this wet level, right? So this is the reverb. We're going to right click, say link to controller. Then under here, we have the option for peak. So you select peak. Then you want to say inverted and say accept. That means every time the note of the MIDI plays, this reverb is going to duck down, and anytime there's an open space when the MIDI is not playing, it's going to pop up. So let's see what this sounds like. That sounds absolutely shit. Okay guys, so let's see what we have here. We have, right here we have the bass. So this basically controls what the maximum this wet level is going to be. So we want that, I don't know, maybe like 20-25%. And then these controls over here control how sensitive it is. So for now, I'm going to put the decay over here, volume and tension. It's a bit too much. It's not perfect, we'll adjust that later, but as you can see, it already made a huge difference. Every time the note's not playing, it just really fills up the space. Okay, so I think those are kind of the two main, or three main, if you want to separate it out like that, things that makes the Brook lead. The pitch bending, whether you want to do that with the actual pitch automations, or if you want to do that with the MIDI notes overlapping, and then the reverb, right? So we have all those things, and then I think pretty much from here, it's just going to be sound design. So without further ado, let's jump back into Sylenth and start working on sound design. Alright guys, here's my favorite synthesizer, Sylenth 1. Like I said, if you have Spire, you can use that because that's actually what Brooks uses, but this is going to totally work. With the init preset, all we have is one layer of saw, just one voice here. I'm going to leave that, and that's pretty much all we need. The only other thing I'm going to add is going to go to the second oscillator and add some white noise. Now, we're going to drag this volume way down, put it to one voice, and then I'm actually going to make this a high pass, so we just have a little more control over what the frequency range of this white noise is. And let's see what this sounds like. I'm also going to add a tiny bit of distortion. I'm just going to use clip here, I think. You can see if I use too much, it sounds just really distorted and not very good. Right in the middle there, it sounds really punchy. Gives it some clarity and loudness too. The other thing I want to do is I'm going to go into EQ. Now you could maybe even add a bandpass filter in this voice if you wanted to, but I'm going to use the EQ and use that to sort of emphasize some of the mid frequencies. So right here I'm going to drag this, take the treble, moving it down all the way to 440 Hertz and boost that up. All right, I like how that's sounding. Okay, so I'm gonna turn this lead off and let's go on and move to the second lead. Okay, so moving on to the second lead, the thing that's important with this is our first and main lead is right in the center, the one that we just made. So what I want to do with these second and third leads is they're gonna be supporting leads. So I want them to be wider out and probably a little bit lower in the mix. So for this, I'm going to create actually 3 voices. So this is in preset, one saw voice there. I'm gonna change this to saw, another saw, and I'm actually going to pan these out, so one to the left and one to the right. And then I'm actually, this lead is going to be a bit more sort of plucky, not as sustained, so I'm going to bring this down, have decay and a tiny bit of release. We can copy that over to amp B, and I'm also going to add one more voice, and I'll just leave this in the center here. Okay, not terrible, but we need to make this a little different. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to make these a band pass. Let's see what that sounds like. Like I said, having this band pass on here kind of gives it that like ducky, nasally sort of sound. Boosts a lot of the mids. Obviously it's a band pass, so it's kind of putting the mid frequencies. Okay, let's add some distortion. And then the thing that I've really found made a big difference and made this second lead sort of what like it's have its iconic sound is the chorus. So this is what it sounds like now. And watch what happens when we put on the chorus. Okay, now I know it's not perfect. We'll keep working on it, but hopefully you can hear. Maybe it's just me, but hopefully you can hear. That to me already is sounding a lot more like the boomerang lead. And then the last thing that we want to do before going in, starting to process this lead, is we want to link it to the pitch automation clip as well. So we're just going to go down here, 12 semitones, and then again we can just go up here and you can link as many of these as you want to the same automation clip. So we're going to go here, the pitch bend, accept it, and now it should be linked. Okay, so it's time to make the third lead. Now I've already linked the pitch automation as well as turned on the portamento. So let's dive right into it. Again, I'm going to do 3 oscillators. This time we're going to do 2 saws. I'm going to also do sort of like we did with the second lead, which is a little bit of decay and release. And I'm not going to, so it's going to be a bit more plucky. And then what I'm actually going to do with this first layer is I'm going to put it in a low pass, turn on the cutoff AB, and just add a little bit of this, so it's even a tiny bit more plucky. In the second oscillator, I'm going to put some white noise, and I'm just going to leave that no filter. Okay, I like that. We're going to distort this a little bit. I'm going to add some chorus, EQ, and I'm going to add some compression as well. Okay, so there we have it. This is the first lead right here, second lead, and third lead. Okay, so this is before any processing. This has no effects or anything on it, but let's just hear all these 3 leads together. It's not perfect. You can hear there's a lot of low end still in the mix, but it's starting to sound really dope. Let's move into processing. So here we are on our first lead. The first thing I always do is I add an EQ. I'm gonna go here and put a high pass on there. So we're cutting out all the low frequencies. And then for this first lead, I'm actually going to add some mids. Let's see, just like that. We'll widen that up a little bit, right at about, I don't know, like 1400 hertz, something like that. Again, that sort of gives it that nice, weird sort of nasally sound that Brooks often has in his leads. Okay, we have EQ. Now we are going to add a shit ton of distortion. Let's go. The first one we're going to add is this Fruity Blood Overdrive, and this is one I've seen Brooks use a lot. So don't go too heavy with it because it adds quite a bit of distortion, but we're just going to go here and see what that sounds like. Perfect, I like that. Blood Overdrive, and then we're also going to add some Fast Distort, and let's see what that sounds like. Already, that's getting pretty darn sick. I think we're just going to leave it like that for this lead. Let's move on to lead number 2. Okay, for this second lead, I'm going to start again with EQ. Just cut out the lows. And I think for this one, I want some sort of like low mid frequencies. So we're gonna add some of that. Okay, we're also going to add some blood overdrive to this one as well. I'm actually gonna add some OTT on this one. We're gonna add some more distortion. Take note, Brooks likes a lot of distortion. And then this is one of my favorite plugins personally. This is actually Serum Effects. It's sort of like the standalone version. It's not actually the synthesizer, but there's like a million effects within Serum that you can use. I personally use it all the time for distortion. So we're gonna go here, let's try this one. It's already so distorted, it doesn't make a huge difference, but I think I like that. Okay, moving on to this third lead. There's a lot of lows in it right now. So listen without the EQ. A lot of lows. So again, we're gonna cut out all the lows. This is pretty much standard procedure for almost any synth. Next, I'm gonna open up this plugin. This is actually a really cool plugin. It's called Crush, and it has a lot of different distortion options. So it has drive, crush, DWSP. I'm not sure what that stands for, but I think it's kind of like a bit crush. So we're just going to play around with this and see what we can get for sound. I'm actually going to use Serum Effects again. I love this plugin. I know I told you that like 2 seconds ago, but it's sick. And then right now there's still a lot of like low end, so I'm actually going to come in with some OTT and not all the way up, but I want to cut some of those lows out. And I might add a tiny bit of stereo enhancer, just make it a tiny bit wider. Okay, so I've mixed the leads together. This is without any effects on the lead bus, but they've all been mixed in volume, and all together they sound like this. Alright, time to go ahead and move on to the lead bus. This is where we're going to take all three of those sounds, and they're individually processed, but we're going to send them all to one bus, process them together, adding some compression, distortion, and really gluing it into one sound. As you can see, I've already done the reverb and peak controller like I showed you, but we need to add some more effects. First thing, I'm going to add an EQ. I'm probably not going to mess with this until later, but I always like to have an EQ in the beginning just so I can mess around with sort of tonal frequencies. This next one is huge for making the Brooks lead. This is going to be Camel Crusher, okay? This is one of my personal favorite plugins. It's totally free, so you can go find it online, but it adds distortion, compression, and as you'll hear in just a second, it really takes a sound and sort of boosts it like, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but let me show you. For this one, I'm going to take off fat mode, and I'm going to turn down the mix a tiny bit. Let's see what that sounds like. It's pretty sick. I love this plugin. It just makes things fat, especially like in the low end. On those low notes, hopefully you can hear there's just like this kind of warm body that it gives it. Next, we're gonna go back to that EQ we just added, and I'm just gonna mess around to see if any certain frequencies, like if I wanna boost like 1.3 kilohertz, again, kind of that weird nasally frequency, stuff like that, sort of just fill out the tone and make it sound like I want it. Okay guys, so that's sounding super sick. Let's just go back. I'm gonna do an A/B comparison between the init lead and what we have now, and you can see what we've created. This is before with just the init lead. And then after some sound design and some processing and all that good stuff, here's the result. Alright guys, well there is the Brooks lead for you. That is the typical Brooks lead, how to do the sound design, how to do the processing and mixing and all that good stuff. So I really hope you learned something today, and if I missed anything, feel free to comment down below. Now I just want to let you know, you're welcome to go ahead and sound design all this stuff yourself. Of course, you can look back and see how I did it and try to copy everything I did. But I just want to let you know that if you just want to get these presets and not have to deal with sound design, all three of these presets for the Brooks lead are actually included in my latest sound bank. It's called Overdrive Volume 1. It's a huge sound bank full of presets in the style of Brooks, basses, chords, plucks, all that stuff for Silent One as well as Serum. So right now I'm running that at a discounted price. I'll link that down below. It's on my website, go check that out, and it's an amazing pack if you want any Brooks sounds. Other than that, I have a brand new single release coming out next month. I'm super excited for this. I've spent a lot of time on this project, and most importantly, it's my first release as a solo artist. Just my track, it's not a collab, not anything, so I'm super excited to release that. I'm gonna play a little preview at the end of this video, and I think that's it, guys. Enjoy this preview of my latest track that's coming up. Again, comment down below if you have anything, questions, comments, whatever, and I'll catch you guys back in the next one. See ya.